Hey everyone, this is Alan Fire back with another Superluminal Stardust tutorial. Today we have yet another dynamic, cool looking FX animation. We're going to be using this Superluminal Stardust plugin for After Effects, a particularly amazing modular particle system. It's very easy to use, yet very complex also, allowing for an endless range of freedom and creative possibilities. If you do not yet own a copy of Stardust, be sure to stop by the website superluminal.tv and grab a free trial so you'll be able to follow along with this tutorial, or at least be able to put these techniques we'll learn into use. Okay, so at this point I'm going to rudely interrupt myself so we can start the tutorial. Okay, so the games begin. I'll go ahead and start by dragging the logo into a new composition. This is the Stardust logo. And I want to make the composition fit about the size of the Stardust text. So let's go to composition settings. Let's make the frame of this composition kind of hug the edge of that text or logo. Let's give it a little bit of breathing room, something like that. Let's hit OK. And let's go ahead and create a new composition. I'll call this Stardust Disperse. This will be our main composition. Let's make it Full HD 1920 by 1080. 24 frames a second, 5 seconds is good. Let's hit OK. And I'll drag this other composition we created originally with the logo in it into this new composition. So let's go back into that logo composition. I'm going to pre-compose this one more time. So right click, pre-compose, move all attributes, and we'll call this Stardust logo. So what we'll do is make an emitter layer for the particles to emit from. So that's what this composition is for, and we'll call this composition emitter. So let's make sure you're not confused. We have three compositions. The Stardust Disperse layer, and this is the main project where all our effects are going to be compiled together. And then we have the emitter layer, which is a sub-composition of the Disperse, the main composition. Then inside of that we have the Stardust logo composition. Okay, so let's go back to the emitter composition. And what I'm going to do is create a new solid. We'll call this matte. And I'm going to grab the rectangular mask tool right here. And I'll click, drag, and hold control, just like that. Something like that looks pretty good. You can double click on the mask and resize the whole control. Something like that. And let's add about 75 pixels of feather. So what we're going to do is toggle switches till we see this track matte feature here. And we're going to turn the Stardust logo track matte to alpha matte. So this Stardust logo is only going to exist where the matte exists. Okay, so now what we're going to do is animate the position of this matte layer. So we'll hit P. That'll open the position parameter. And we'll move this to the side. Hold Shift and it'll only move horizontal, just like that. And let's add a keyframe to the position. Let's go about 3 seconds forward and move this all the way to the other side. Remember, hold Shift so it only moves horizontal. Or you can move this parameter here, change its value. Okay, so we have this nice animation. And again, this is going to be the layer that the particles are going to emit from. Before we get with the Stardust awesomeness stuff, there's one more thing I want to do, and I'm going to duplicate this emitter layer up here in the project window. So now these are two independent compositions. I'm going to call this Reveal. So let's go into that Reveal composition. So at the end it's good. What I want to do is hit M for mask, add a keyframe to the mask, and then go to the very beginning, double click on this mask, and extend it all the way out. So we want the whole Stardust layer to be showing at this point, but for some reason it's cut off here, and that's just because that's where the edge of the layer is since we moved it to the side. So there's a pretty cool technique we can do to fix this, and you might want to pay attention to this because it's pretty cool. We'll type in fill in our effects and presets window, and we'll drag fill to that matte layer. And so what we can do is check all mask. Boom, it's going to fill in the entire mask regardless of the fact that the edge of the layer is right here. It's going to extend beyond the edge of the layer. Okay, looking cool. There's one kind of problem. See, this fill doesn't account for the mask feather. So what we can do is just get rid of the feather, turn this to 0, and we can just add a fast blur to this matte layer. We'll do about 75 pixels of feather just like before. And that's good for the reveal. Actually, it's not a reveal. I mean, if you play it in reverse, it's a reveal, but it's actually like the opposite of reveal, or like hide or obscure. There's probably a better word, but you know, reveal should work. Okay, so let's go back to the Stardust Disperse composition, our main composition. Let's just drag in that reveal composition. So we have two compositions now. We have the emitter composition and then the reveal composition. Okay, So you remember I was talking about that Stardust awesomeness, and well, it's time for that stuff. So what I'm going to do is create a new solid. We'll call this, let's move this to the center here, that's ugly. Stardust. Let's hit OK, and then we'll apply the Stardust effect from Superluminal. Boom. Cool, we got some particles. That's not exactly what we want though. Let's change the emitter type from point to layer, and we want it to emit from this emitter layer. So what we can do is go down here to the layer properties and choose the emitter layer. Boom, that's not exactly what we want either. See, the problem is it's emitting from the entire emitter layer, and the emitter layer is this big rectangle here, but we only want it to emit from the white parts of the emitter layer. So what we can do, there's always a way to do what we want pretty much. We can go down here to the texture gets color. Since it's transparent over here, the particles that emit from this point will be transparent and you can't see them. So essentially it's only going to emit from the parts of the layer that have opacity, or that you can see. Okay, so we want to change this layer time sample from current time to on birth. Now I'm going to go ahead and explain real quick what that means. Current time means that the particle can change its color throughout its life based on the color of the point on the layer it was emitted from. Like, for instance, this particle right here was emitted from this white point. Then if that part of the layer becomes black, okay, it just turned black because of the current time of that point that it was emitted from. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, well, I'll feel really bad, but that's the best I can do. The on birth means that the color of the particle will be the color of the pixel it was emitted from at birth, and no matter if that pixel changes, it doesn't matter. It only matters about when the particle was born. So this pixel was born on a white pixel, so it's always going to be white, and that's what we want. That probably took a little bit too long to explain that. Let's go ahead and change the particles per second to like 100,000. Kind of a lot of particles, but not too much. Let's change the particle life to about 1 second, and also I don't want any velocity or speed here. So let's turn this down to 0. So you can see here what's going on. It's leaving a trail, a Stardust text trail. So we can make a few more adjustments. What we're going to do is go down here to the over life settings of the particle, go to the size parameter. Let's just bring this down so when it's born there's no size, and then it just kind of goes down like this. Maybe like that. Okay, looks good. Let's go to the particle properties, turn the particle size down to about 6 and the size random up to about 35. Okay, so let's see what it looks like when we turn on our reveal composition. Let's actually turn off the emitter composition like that. And this is what we got so far. So it starts out with the Stardust text, and the Stardust goes away and it leaves behind this trail of particles. But we want it to look, like I said at the very beginning of the video, more dynamic animation that looks really cool and wavy and luscious. To begin this stuff of which I speak, let's drag in a turbulence node and connect this to the particle node. So now I'm going to explain to you what the turbulence node does. It actually adds turbulence, in case you didn't see the connection there. So what we'll do is turn up the position offset. This is the position turbulence, which is the useful stuff. Let's turn it up to about 400. We've got a noticeable amount of turbulence there. But see, the problem here is that the particle is born with full turbulence. But we want the turbulence to increase over the particle's life. So we can go down here to the turbulence over life parameter, and at the beginning of the particle's life, let's just bring this all the way down. So there's no turbulence at the beginning of the particle's life, and when time increases, the particle begins to be affected by the turbulence. Okay, looking better. Got this nice disperse effect going on here, but trust me, we can make it look a lot better. It looks kind of dispersed, like it doesn't have that nice turbulent, luscious shape, if y'all know what I'm referring to. So there's a few ways we can fix this. First off, if we increase the noise scale, it'll make it a little more visible. So let's turn the noise scale up to about 150. That's a little better. And what we can also do is go up here to the emitter, go to the size Z, and turn this all the way down to 0 so that there's not depth to the turbulence. It's just one flat plane, distorted, turbulent plane. And that's going to make the turbulent more concise or more clear. So that's looking pretty amazing at this point. The lusciousness of this turbulence animation is making up for that terrible explanation I did a while back. It wasn't that terrible, but it's just funny, right? It's a funny joke. This is very luscious. This is very good. And there's one small little problem here. We can kind of see the text dis-revealing or fading away. We want that fade to be camouflaged or obscured by the particles. And let's make it as invisible as possible. So what's causing this is the turbulence. As you can see here, if there's no turbulence, the particles are in the way and you can't see that fade out. But when we add turbulence, boom, it moves out of the way. Now we can see the ugly or dis-reveal of the Stardust text. So what we can do is actually towards the beginning of the particle's life, we can bring the turbulence down so that it's not so dispersed. So we can go to this linear, change this to Bezier so everything's smooth. Okay, perfect. That's just what I wanted. Like I said, there's always a way to get what you want with Stardust. Everyone's a winner, except if you don't know how to use Stardust, which is why we're here at this tutorial, to learn how to use it. Oh goodness, that's looking so good. And at this point, we need to add some colors, make it look juicy, all that stuff. But we've already passed the secret G14 classified information about how this effect is created. So from here on, it's now just being aesthetic and letting our creative soul out with art and all that wonderful stuff. So let's go in here into the emitter, and what we're going to do is make a color matte. So what we're going to do is change the color of this emitter, and that's going to change the color of these particles. So this is going to be cool. So let's go in here actually to the Stardust logo composition. We'll create a new solid, call this color map, and fractal noise has a nice random nature, and that's good for these random colors we want to add. There's something really cool you can do with fractal noise. We can change this from basic to turbulent smooth, and we can change the type from soft linear to block. Look at that. That's some really cool fractal noise stuff. But what I'm going to do is add a tritone effect, and I'm going to add several different colors here. So for the shadows, I'm going to change this to like a purplish blue indigo kind of hue, and then for the highlights, let's make this kind of blue, kind of cyan blue. And for the midtones, let's just make this another color of blue here. That should do just fine. And also, I'm actually going to duplicate this color map, delete the tritone, just add some contrast. Kind of change this up a little bit, increase the width. Yeah, something like that. Turn down the brightness. That looks pretty cool. We can toggle switches, change the blending mode of this second duplicated color map to add, and then we got some cool highlights to this texture, and we can add some animation to this. Alright, so I'll just add an expression because I'm a cool advanced person, you know, like adding expressions instead of animating the evolution stopwatch. So I'll alternate click the stopwatch here. That allows the sweet possibility of adding an expression. Let's type in time. We'll make the value of this evolution parameter to be equal to the value of time multiplied, shift 8, multiplied by, let's say, 150. So if the value of time equals 1, the value of this is going to be 150. And as time increases, the value of this evolution value will increase. That's how cool expressions are. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully I clicked for the first time. I would feel very honored if you were clicked by my explanation. So before any of you get bored and X out of this tutorial, I've got to get to more cool stuff. So now that we got the color map, let's pre-compose these together. Move all attributes. Call this color map, and what I'm going to do is put this below the Stardust logo, and for track matte I'll do alpha matte. Boom. So the color map only exists where the Stardust logo layer exists concerning the alpha information. So check this out. Go back to the main composition. The particles now have amazing color. Okay, but we don't actually want to add color to the original text here. What we'll do is just go into the reveal. This is where the text is, and let's just add a fill effect to this layer. So type in fill, double click, turn this to white. Boom, fix that problem. Now there's kind of a problem here because it goes to white. The blue, that doesn't look right. How are we going to fix this? Well, first off, we can change the blending mode of the Stardust layer to screen, which kind of, in some sense, adds the colors together so it can't darken, which makes it look better, but then it still has this kind of ugly transition from white to blue. Well, we want these to be more like fiery energy particles, which is more like light, which light needs to add together. So like there can't be any darkening. These particles need to add together. So there's like more particles, more energy, more brighter, right? That's proper grammar. So what we can do is actually go to the particle parameter thing here and change the transfer mode to add. Boom. So that way the colors are going to add together, and so more particles equals more energy and more light. We've got a nice energy field to these particles now. It's looking good, but they look kind of blown out. You can see here that this looks kind of like this blown out cyan color here. What we can do is go into the emitter and maybe just go into the color map and turn down the vibrance or saturation of this this color map. So what I'll do is add an adjustment layer control, turn it Y, and just add like a tint effect. Change this to like 35, something like that. Go back to the Stardust Disperse. That seems to help a little bit. Okay, looking better. So what I want to do is probably add more particles. So let's just do like 150,000 more particles. The more the better, the more the merrier, that kind of thing. Usually that's the case with particles. I want to add some particle feather. So let's go down to the particle node, add some feather, about 25 pixels. Great stuff. Great stuff right there. Now there's one kind of problem-ish factor about this scene, which is sometimes we do see kind of small leftovers of the text as it fades into particles. We want to make this, like I said, more inconspicuous, but also since we can't completely hide it, we want to make, while it's here, just make it look better, because we can't completely hide it. So how can we make this look better? What I'm thinking is maybe add some blur to it and also add some turbulence, and that'll make it look like it's dispersing or kind of heat melting away into the air. Kind of blends with the particles much better. So how are we going to do that? This is also G14 classified information that's going to be revealed. Let's go into the reveal. Alright, see what I did there? Let's go into the reveal layer and let's duplicate this map. I'm going to turn this on, solo the layer, and I'm going to make this black. What I'll do now is make a white solid, put it under that layer, and so we have this kind of map here. And so this is going to be our blur map. So let's just pre-compose these two layers together, pre-compose, call this blur map. And what I'll do is just add a new adjustment layer, and we're going to add a new cool effect. You may have heard of it. I really like this effect. It's called a compound blur. Now, the reason why this blur is special is because you can define how blurry it is in certain areas of the composition based on a blur map. And that's really cool because there's different amounts of blur in different places. So we can go to this blur layer and choose our blur map. Boom, it's going to be more blurry over here because of the brightness levels of our blur map. Okay, let's turn this down to about 4 maybe. So this is going to make it like melt away much better and less obvious. If we want to add some turbulence, we gotta make another map. So let's just duplicate this map, but we gotta do so in the project so we don't mess up this map. So right click, reveal layer, source and project, duplicate the map here, call this distortion map. I'll drag this down into the composition. Let's go in here, let's try to do this fast. I'm gonna add some fractal noise to this white solid. What we're doing is creating a displacement map in case any of you guys were confused, and we want to make this part gray so there's no distortion. The way it works is gray isn't distorted at all, but black's distorted in one direction, white's distorted in another direction. So we've got this kind of cool blur map here. Let's turn down the complexity a little bit, say something like that, and add some evolution. So add an expression like a cool kid. Let's type in time times 150. I hope you guys know I'm joking about that cool kid thing. It's not cool to add expressions. It's kind of like useful, if you know what I'm saying. Alright, so let's go back. There's our distortion map, and on this adjustment layer, let's apply a displacement map. Apply this to the layer here, and let's choose distortion map for our layer. Then we can just increase the horizontal and vertical displacement, so we got some very, very nice distortion. That looks very lovely to me. Okay, so let's see how this looks with our particles. Very nice. We want to be careful about adding too much distortion, because then if you think about it, the distortion actually moves it from behind the particles, and we want the particles to kind of cover the area. So just be careful about adding too much distortion there. Possibly we can just go down and change the size of this distortion map so it doesn't displace in large sections. Yeah, that should be fine. So you can see here that it doesn't displace from behind the particles. Okay, looking great. We want to add some color to the Stardust text. There's a really cool way we can do that. Just duplicate that, call this text color, and what I'll do is actually add a fast blur. Maybe do about 25. Duplicate the fast blur. Go to the compositing options, turn this down to about 50, but then we'll increase the blur amount. So we'll do this about 60. Boom. So we have two kind of layers of blur. Looks really cool. What I'm going to do is add a fill effect to this text color layer, and we're going to change this to kind of a blue color. Maybe something kind of like that. Now, I hope you're not getting scared because we're not going to leave it like this. We're going to change the blending mode of this color layer to screen, so it kind of adds together. We got this nice lightsaber glow around our Stardust. And speaking of glow, I'm sure these particles are getting a little bit jealous of that beautiful glow, that beautiful atmosphere of glow around that Stardust text. So what we'll do is add a glow to this Stardust layer. So let's type in glow in the effects and presets, apply it here, and let's make several adjustments. Let's change the glow operation to screen, and let's do our own custom colors A and B. Let's do A is greater than B for the looping, and for color B, let's do kind of a deep blue, and for the color A, let's do kind of more of a cyan, bright color. Yeah, like that. Great stuff right there, man. This glow is also going to kind of adjust the color of these particles, and that should help. Also, before we finish the glow, we do want to add a solid composite because we can't have transparency with glow. It's not going to turn out right. So let's add a solid composite effect and change the background to black. So that's going to make it look better. And let's turn the glow radius up to about, say, 75, like that. Oh, that's a pretty glow right there, man. That looks pretty great to me. There we go. That looks, that looks very nice. So let's go back to the Stardust. Let's make a few last Stardust adjustments. I actually want these particles to kind of rise as they disperse. It gives them more of a wispy, light, dynamic feel. So let's drag in a force node. We can drag in as many nodes as we want. That's the awesome thing about Stardust, is that there's no limit to your combination of different nodes and systems and setups. That's awesome stuff right there, man. Love this plugin. Let's turn the gravity down so we kind of have some anti-gravity sci-fi-ness going on. Oh, that's not sci-fi. Like, is it sci-fi for a helium balloon to float? Of course it's not. So this is completely scientific by, making the gravity go upwards. You know what I'm saying? You should get what I'm saying. This is science here. Okay, so minus 180 should be good. That's awesome stuff right there. So I also do want to add motion blur. This is really easy. Just go up here to the Stardust, this first Stardust effect, and go to the render settings, motion blur, check motion blur. That's going to add a much more natural feel, much more natural motion. You can kind of see the vector of the motion and distortion. Motion blur really helps. Okay, that looks great. Looks really great and professional. Last thing we probably want to do is add a camera, add some camera motion here. This tutorial is getting kind of long. We've covered the juice, the gravy, the G14 classified secret information. So now, like I said, we're just having fun. Let's add a new camera. Control, Alternate Shift C, cool shortcut. Let's go to the beginning here. We can do A for the anchor point, but we have to hold Shift to keep the other parameter. So we'll do Shift P so it keeps the point of interest there. And let's add a keyframe to both of those. And let's go, say, 3 seconds forward. I'm going to actually go to a top view because I can see what's going on better. So what I'll do is change the point of interest to over there where the action is. And the way 2-node cameras work is that the camera automatically orients towards the point of interest. Good, and we can change the position Z first. Probably like that. That should work fine. And then the position point of interest can go something like that maybe. Then I kind of want to move these keyframes after the animation's finished. So, okay, that should be great. Now to make this animation smooth, I'll select all the keyframes, click F9. That'll add easy ease. We could even go into the graph. Here's actually the easy ease button, and we're in the edit speed graph. So this shows the speed of which these values are changing. What I'll do is add a little more easiness to this, and maybe something like that. Great stuff right there. And then we want to just preview and refine the motion of this camera to make sure nothing goes out of picture or anything. Ooh, and I almost forgot about this. We want to make sure that our Stardust text layers are three-dimensional, because if they're not three-dimensional, they're not going to honor the motion of that three-dimensional camera. So we'll toggle switches till we see this 3D button here. Let's just make them 3D so they respect the motion of that camera. And the Stardust is automatically a three-dimensional effect, so nothing needs to be done there. And along with the motion blur, it'd be good to add some depth of field. The depth of field is like the blurriness depending on how far away the object is away from the camera. We go down here to the camera settings and go to the camera options. Let's turn depth of field on. And we can increase our aperture. That'll create a more narrow focus point, so not that much. Let's do about 50, something like that. Now, I'm going to show you how you can control how deep the focus point is, or how far away the focus point is from the camera. So a good thing to do is go over here to the top view, and if you actually click on the camera, you can see the focus distance right here. And we want to focus right here on the kind of center part where it's dispersing. So we just make it just like that. We can actually keyframe this focus distance. So add a keyframe, click the stopwatch there, go to the beginning, and you just change the focus distance. Okay, so there's one last thing I'd like to show you guys, and that is how you can add these atmospheric particles floating around the scene, and it gives a sense of an environment. It helps kind of manifest the camera motion. It just adds to the scene, and we can do this pretty easy. Here's how we're going to do it. We also did it with Stardust, and we're going to create a new solid one called these atmospheric particles, and let's just go ahead and apply the Stardust plugin. There we go. Apply it to that atmospheric particle layer, and see, I said this is going to be very easy, and the reason is because we have all these presets. If you go to this header Stardust parameter, you can click one of these pictures here, and that's going to take you to the preset browser. And let's just choose fire smoke category, and we have this option here called bonfire 1. That looks pretty good. Let's click that one and do replace, and there we go. Just like that, we have some kind of atmospheric bonfire particles, and this will definitely really help our scene. I would like them to be kind of blue like the other colors in the scene, so what we can do is just quickly add a tritone, probably the simplest way to do it, and just change this mid-tone color to something kind of more blue. Just like that. And let's not forget to also add motion blur. So render settings, motion blur, turn it on. Here we go. Okay, yeah, those environment particles should definitely help add to our scene. So the last thing we have, we had in the original example, were these kind of blue background gradient. It also gives the feel of an environment. Basically, these are just 3D layers with circular masks on them with a lot of feather. It just gives a nice blue shade in the background. Okay, I believe we're finished. We've definitely covered a lot of material today. I do truly hope this was a productive and beneficial use of your time. I also hope you have a better understanding of how Stardust works and how you can be creative with it. Okay, I hope you guys take this knowledge out and do some awesome things. My name is Alan Fire, and I will see you next time. Thank you.